guys, I am here in my Austin studio for the next week or so, and I am so excited to put Gurminder's interview live. He is such a kind soul, and we have been wanting to sit down for about the last 6 months. I was eye-opened to hear his exact story. He has built such an incredible brand off of his dad's legacy business in Toronto. He has created an incredible culture, you guys, with his team and consistency and their unique creative eye and the way that they use color, and it's moody, and we really talk about how they've gotten there and what their story is for developing their unique look. We also talk about how we sometimes ignore milestones in our own lives because we're so focused on giving back to our clients ourselves. So we're going to talk about just a nice refresher of why we should pause sometimes and be present for our own loved ones. I can't wait for you to hear his vision, his story, and learn a little bit more about what makes Banga Studios. Enjoy! Well, here we are in Annapolis, which I keep mispronouncing.
Yeah.
Annapolis, right? Maryland.
I believe so, yeah. Asking the wrong person.
But we're here at the Not Pro workshop, the second to last one of 2018, actually. I don't know if you knew that. And we have our full workshop tomorrow, but we've been talking about this for the last 6 months.
It's been a while. I'm glad we finally been able to put it together.
Here we are, same city.
Definitely.
But I know a little bit about your story, and I just learned a little bit something new just a couple minutes ago. So,
right.
And your dad had a past life doing many things, and then when you were young, started a photography business.
Exactly. So growing up, I really never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. It actually never, it wasn't a career choice that I had in mind. But now when I look back at it, I'm like, there's always been a part of me that had that way to hustle and the way to make a sale, and it actually starts from when I was in middle school or high school. I used to buy samosas, and I used to buy them 4 for $1, and I would sell them to all my non-Indian friends for $1 each.
And you're like, I like this.
Yeah, and I used to make money, and it just happened that way, right? So I kind of had this thing in me that just did that. And then my dad, he's been a photographer ever since I've known him. He doesn't do that anymore, and he had a photography studio. He would shoot weddings, he would do portraits, he'd do all that kind of stuff. Sometimes we would go shadow him at a wedding. I'd be maybe 14 or 15, and we would just go to spend the day with that. It was all film. He started shooting digital towards the end, so we really didn't do much. We just kind of hung out, and that's it. Just kind of held some cameras, and that was about it. And then when I went into university, he decided, and he was just like, you know what, none of my kids, and there's 4 of us in total, he's like, none of our kids are interested in being a photographer or taking over the business. And he's like, I can't be 50 or 60 running around doing wedding pictures, so I think it's time
it's a hard long-term feed.
Exactly. So he's just like, you know, I don't think it's for me anymore. And then our studio is in Toronto. We're based in Toronto, but we fly everywhere. And so we actually had a physical space. And when I was in my undergrad and I was studying for university, I felt like I had nowhere to study. So I'm like, you know what, my dad's place is empty, let's just go there and we'll study there, because it's hot, there's food, you can come in and out when you want, there's nothing to worry about, and it's quiet. So I would just study at my dad's studio, and then he would be like, oh, someone's coming for a passport picture, can you take it? I'm like, sure. Oh, someone wants a family picture, can you do it? I'm just like, sure. So I'm just trying to figure this out, because that's not my forte. And I always thought I'd be a consultant or a banker.
Like a business, super busy business.
Exactly. I always say a corporate slave, a suit and tie, going in the office.
Sales,
yeah, just something like that. And I think that's all I saw, and that's all I knew, and that's just how my school was programmed, and that's how I was programmed. And so I took these pictures, they really sucked, and they were horrible. And then what happened is, the things I learned in school, I got to apply to my business. And I'm pretty competitive, and I'm just really into improvement and getting better. And I used to see some other photographers' pictures, and my friends would be like, oh, yo, that guy took some sick pictures. And I'm just like, let me see that. And I looked at it, and I'm like, damn, those are actually really good. I'm
I can do this.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I was like, I could do this. I really couldn't, but I kind of learned and I figured it out as I went. And then the things I learned in school about, you know what, growing a team and building a culture and having values and just kind of understanding that part of it really helped me in the customer service part, because I started about 10 years ago in the art world, that it was just kind of lacking. The customer service wasn't there, the delivery, the excellence, that we felt was just really lacking. And those are the things that I knew, and I understood that that has to be a part of your business, or how do you treat your team members and all of that. So that's kind of how the story began, and we just started, like, it just kind of happened. It just, like, the way I want to say our business kind of started growing was really word of mouth.
But from the creative, I'm curious, because I think obviously the business side and the sales side and that structure came so naturally to you. How did you overcome and kind of, like, obviously the whole creative, like, component and finding your creative eye, and, like, were there things that you did to kind of hone into what your style is now, or has it been, like, kind of evolving as you've seen and been inspired by other
yeah, so like
creatives?
now definitely get inspired by other creatives. I think that's a huge part of it. A big part of how I feel like my style is involved is that I really don't look at people in my industry. I just don't. I just feel like with me, if I want to be creative, I'll look at people in commercial, I'll look at people advertising, I'll look at people doing street photography, I'll look at people with just different skill sets altogether, and then I find myself naturally doing that with my bride and groom. So, like I said, when we started, we were young, so what I thought was cool was a groom eating McDonald's and putting on his outfit, because, like, that's dope, right?
Yeah.
But my brides didn't think so in the beginning. Or, like, let's say a guy, he's reading a newspaper, he's sitting on the toilet on his wedding day. And this is, like, years ago, where it was just, like, straight, like, portraits, like, super serious, like, that's just what it was. And so at that age, that's what I thought was really cool. And that's what I did a lot of. And then the following couple years, the brides are like, you know what, we don't really like that. We want, like, romantic, lovey-dovey. We want those kind of moments, right? So I listened to them, like, okay, I got it. Let me try that as well. Like, there's no harm in doing both. So we started doing a lot more of that. And then that's how we started doing, like, more dramatic portraits. So like playing with lighting, being creative with lighting, positioning it the way we want it. And then a lot of our portraits started becoming, like, more dramatic and moody.
I think, you know, your work is there is such a moodiness and a depth, and there's a story. You know, you can see and feel the story, and then you have that moodiness and darkness, but also there's a sense of color and vibrancy that I think that you have such an incredible way of balancing in one image, you know, the vibrancy, but yes, the mood, but yet the story. So.
Yeah. And I think you pretty much nailed it. So then when we have, like, these few different elements, it's like now we just kind of merge them together somehow, and I don't know how. It just came, like, you know, and a lot of people are like, oh, what's your style? What's your this? What's your that? And it's like, I don't know, you figure it out, right? Like, you figure it out by just practicing and shooting and, like, working on your craft. And I think that's how you figure it out. Like, you can't just sit there and write and think, oh, this is gonna be my style. Like, for me, that just didn't work. And then my whole thing is, like, as a person, you're kind of a balance of both, like, of all, right? Like, sometimes you could be sexy, sometimes you can just have fun with your husband, like, you're just joking around, like having a water fight, whatever it is. And other times you're just really in the moment, you're very romantic. So I think on the wedding day, all three of those segments need to kind of show in your pictures. And how they show is really important, because there's certain moments that kind of allow for that. So, like, say you just got married, that's probably one of the happiest moments of your life. So your pictures have to reflect that happiness, that color, that liveliness, and that connection between your friends. But let's say before your reception, that's, like, more dramatic and dark, and, like, the mood is just that. And now your pictures should represent that. So how we shoot it should also say that throughout the story, right? And I have clients that they'll come and be like, hey, you know what, we want that very editorial, edgy look. And I look at them, I'm like, that's not who you are. Like, I tell them straight.
Doesn't match.
Like, you know what, you could be very posy, we can get you to be dramatic, but I'm like, that's not who you are. You're, like, a fun-loving person. So I'll listen to you, I'll do some of it, but let's try this instead. And let's see how they both look together. And I think that's important as well, is that they might want this Pinterest board because that's all they know. And I know a lot of, like, people in the industry just hate, like, a bride comes with ideas and inspiration. And, you know, sometimes it could be a challenge because it's like you have your own ideas and there's, like, a roadblock. True. So I just tell people, I'm like, listen, like, I get where you're coming from. I'll try some of it, but let me also try this out as well. And let's see if we can kind of fusion it. And then once you pitch that, they kind of hear what you're saying. And then once you present what it is you present, they're gonna love it because they're hiring you for what you do and what you love doing. So they're gonna forget about this Pinterest board, hopefully. Hopefully. And they just kind of trust you, right? So that's a big component of it as well.
So one of the things I've been really excited to continue to see you work on is a passion project of yours, which is a day in the life.
So how it actually started is that I have a nephew. I think he was about 2 when I shot him. He was my first subject. And what happened is like I just felt like I don't spend enough time with him. And I think in this industry, we spend so much time servicing everyone, their wedding, their day, their event, their family. But it's like, okay, what about your family? What about your events? What about your milestones? And I think those just get forgotten. And from a photographer, it's like, I know a lot of photographers, but it's like, do they document their own families? And they don't, and it's not like they can. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
and it's like the last thing they think of is picking up the camera when they're
exactly.
In that
don't want to do that. And I just decided, hey, I want to spend the whole day with him. So let me just shoot like what reality looks like for him. All of the pictures online is like him like with Winnie the Pooh or something. I'm like, this guy's not like that. So I spent the whole day with him, and it was just so eye-opening. Like first it was like fun. I got to do what I love, and I got to see him in different parts. Like I got to see his happiness. I got to see his like purity. I got to see him interacting with his grandmother, my mom, because at that time she was staying home and watching him. So it's so joyful for her to like see their relationship with each other.
And to see that side of her, I think, was probably eye-opening for you to
exactly.
capture.
Like she was just like so in her element. So we started that. We just started capturing that day in the life for him, and I did like a slideshow presentation for my family, and it was just so empowering. And for me, it was just like I felt like I just connected to him more, and I just felt so present to his love as well. And I just got to spend all this time with him. And I was like, you know what, I feel like I'm onto something here. And then I was headed to New York for an event, and I met Jess Gordon.
I love her.
Yeah, she's like epic, super badass, like my favorite.
Beautiful soul.
Oh, so beautiful. And I met her at the gym at Engage, and then I'm just like I DM'd her. I'm like, hey, like I'm doing this project. Like, do you mind if I do it a day in life?
Let's hang out.
Yeah, and it's kind of like nervous to when I think about it. I was kind of nervous asking. I'm like, I really want to spend the whole day with you. I'm gonna shoot whatever it looks like, beautiful, ugly, doesn't matter. I'm gonna capture it. And are you okay with like letting me into your life? And then she got back. She's like, yo, let's do it. And then we shot it, and it was just so much fun. Like we had a freaking blast. Like we hit it off like automatically right away. We just hit it off. But then what I realized is that I get to learn so much about them, and I get to learn about their story. Like on the outside, it's one thing, right? But on the inside, it's like sure, she's an event designer and she's like one of the top in the world, but like she goes through shit in her life. She has stories. She's had challenges. She's overcome them. You know, she's dealt with all of these things, right? And if you spend a day with someone, I feel like you get to know them, and then you start learning about yourself. You know, how do you act? How do you interact? How do you deal with situations? So then I started learning that about myself. So that happened, and then through that, it wasn't intended to be that, but it became like a networking piece for me. So like we just started networking. So she has a client or she has an event. She'll be like, oh, I think Gurminder will be good for that. I think Banga Studios is awesome.
Like you never did it with the intention of getting business from
No, not at all. I just did it because I wanted to do it, and I thought it was just cool, and I think I felt like it needed to be done. And so that happened, and I started doing it. Then I was in LA, and I reached out to Troy, and I also met him at Engage, and I'm like, I want to spend it with your family, and I did that with him, and he's like been a good like one of my best friends now that we hang out all the time. So it just kind of became a project, like a huge project. And then Troy introduced me to Brooks, with Julianne's husband, and I shot him, and then I started working out with him. Like it just became this like snowball effect where I just started shooting really interesting people. And I think for me, it's my job to showcase what reality looks like for people, because it's not what you see online, and we hear it all the time. And it's like I want to do something, and I want to showcase it, and it's just I think it's a fun project for me to take on, and you learn a lot about them, you learn a lot about yourself, and if great things come out of it,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the things we've talked about is you recently lost your grandpa. I don't know what you called him, grandpa.
Yeah.
And kind of how you recommend, like you said, like photographers and other pros don't really invest in our families in the way that we invest in our clients.
Of course, yeah.
And so I would love to hear how that's kind of changed you a little bit.
Yeah, so I went to my grandfather. He lives in India, so I was there 3 times in the last 5 years, and every time I just made it effort that I want to shoot his portraits. And I think I don't know what got me to do it. I just wanted to. It was just something I wanted to do, and he wasn't forward. He wasn't against it. He's like, yeah, whatever, like do whatever you want. Like he didn't really care, right? And the last time I went, and I'm like, you know what, this might be the last time I'm gonna see him, right? And it was so, but it was so awesome that I captured those pictures of him, and like those are the pictures that we're sharing now. Those are the pictures that we're posting. Those are the pictures that we remember.
The family holds on to.
Of course, and that, and on top of that is like when I think about people's like, you know, at the end, so I could talk about photography and events, but like this is literally this is a milestone in people's lives, right? Like for us, it's our job, but this is really a milestone. Like this is what they're gonna remember. These are stories they're gonna talk about. This is what's bringing their families together. And for us, it might be just another job. But then when I look at it, when someone passes away, like that's what you have, right? You have memories and moments. Like that's what you remember. Like you don't take the cars with you, you don't take the money with you, you don't take any of that. Like you take these moments, right? And that's the moments that get dispersed throughout. And pictures do a great job at documenting that. It's not related to weddings, but it's for yourself, right? And I think if you work on yourself and you work on your family, like that's how the rest of the world propels, right? Because you can't be one way with your family and another way at work. It's like it just doesn't work that way, right? Like who you are at home and who you're at work, it should consistently be
fluid.
It should be more fluid, right? And be more authentic.
I think that's just a good reminder, regardless if you're a photographer or not. I think being present, especially with the ones that we care about, in a way of creating those memories, but also documenting them in a way that's not like looking for the perfect selfie or trying to get that perfect image, but just having imagery that captures that moment in time.
Totally. And it just, for me, like all of my personal projects, they then reflected into my work and how I do and how I deal with the team and how that grows. And
how many team members do you have?
There's about like 12 of us.
Are you a photography company that's structured in a way where you have like you're for all, like you have a low level, you know, associate photographers and so forth, or are you guys much more kind of, you know, what is that infrastructure that you've created that you've found to be successful?
I feel like the structure that works for us is that we're all on the same playing field, and we do a lot to make sure that we upkeep that. So if we're projecting that, we need to make sure internally we're able to provide that. So whether you get like Gurminder or Simran or Reed or Gagan, whoever you get, like we're able to provide that. So what we do is like we'll have like different teams. The teams switch all the time, so I'm not shooting with the same photographer all the times. So say we do like 2 weddings on a weekend. What we do is every bi-weekly we do an artist circle where we actually all come through, we sit down and we review the images, our favorite images that we shot, and we get a chance to critique them. We critique them, we see what we did well, we see what other people are doing, and then we set performance goals for ourselves. Like, hey, next week I want to try this, or next week I want to do this. And then we just kind of stay accountable to that. So I feel like that's really helped everyone kind of grow into where we wanted to go.
And has also created a sense of community, vulnerability, and transparency, you know, which I think is hard to create in a team.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you are having teams that are, you know, mixing allows people to, I think, challenge themselves in different ways week by week, or, you know, teach someone something just based on that kind of shifting, which I think is
It's been great, and I know a lot of people have issues like, oh, we don't know who to hire, we can't find people, and honestly we hire like college grads, like we hire people out of school and we just put them through an internship program. So the first year it's like, you know, just shadow us, shoot with us, be our third shooter, to show up on set. And the same if you're an event planner, you could just get someone that's eager to learn. I think the people that are eager to learn, they'll continue with you whether they went to school for it or not. They just want to learn. And then through that artist circle, they just evolve so fast, because then they see, oh, this is what this person is doing, this is what this person is doing, and then we learn from them because they're the young minds, so they see the world differently than we do. And I felt like that just integrates them really quickly. And for me, it also gives me a little bit more of a hands-off approach, because now the team is training the team, right? It's not like a dictatorship, like, hey, this is what he says, he's the owner, like this. It's not like that. It's like, no, you guys, we've collectively agreed on this is the kind of style we want, this is how we want to shoot, and it's kind of come to be. And it's taken a long time. Like, I know I'm talking about this now, but it's taken years, and we've had situations that didn't work out, we've had challenges, we've had all of that. It's just that now we're just in a good place, right?
Well, this has been fantastic.
Totally.
I feel like so many nuggets. I feel like we could talk forever. So we'll have to follow up on an Instagram Live.
Of course, let's do it.
Talk more about your team and strategy.
Oh yeah,
and all
totally.
that stuff, and continue to watch you grow.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I know this is kind of like your way of giving service back to your audience, and I think it's great just for you that you're actually putting this a lot of work. It's not easy, right? So it's she's like, it's a lot of work. Like you guys should see your suitcase.
But I love it.
Yeah.
No, it really fills my heart in many, many layers.
Totally.
So thank you.
Sick. Well, thank you so much.
Till next time, let's go.
Of course, let's do it.
She's very on point. So guess who's here?
We got Kristi.
Are we in focus? Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
She's back. I know. And we just had a great interview. You saw it. Yeah. So where can people find you online?
So Banga Studios on Instagram, g.banga if you want to see the day in the life project.
It's awesome. Phenomenal.
And that's it.
Okay. Well, we'll have to check it out. And I'll link everything below. And
Got it.
yeah.
Awesome.
We're gonna go to dinner here in Maryland for the evening, and then the workshop tomorrow. Bye. The room is finally set. It's so beautiful. I'll show you the details. We have an action-packed day today here in Annapolis, and the guests are just arriving for breakfast.